So for today's video, I wanted to show you an article, and the reason I'll read the article is because I want to show you how the CIA, which admittedly funded Gloria Steinem and 98% of all the magazines that women read, how they contributed to feminism and the breakdown of the nuclear family unit, the breakdown between male-female relationships that were lasting and of the old type, instead of the new cock carousel type. But this article, which I'm going to read between the lines and show you how they're constantly propagandizing and creating dysfunction. Women have been conditioned to lower their expectations. In an era of supposed gender equality, we're still not demanding enough from our men. By Janice Bay on August 19th. Growing up as a millennial, I learned all too late that the rights I have as a woman were very recently gained when considering the issue from a historical perspective. So they're trying to say that all these rights are recent and therefore they're not guaranteed, although we thought they were guaranteed. But what she doesn't mention, because that's just a personal opinion, is that there's a reason women's rights was not the norm for most of history, because it only comes in at a certain time when civilization is basically done with and they're trying to destroy it because it has served its purpose and a new system has to come in. Now the American old system is gone, and United Nations and Bill Gates are always criticizing America and Americans. So the 1970s ushered in a new wave of progressive legislation in the name of women's rights. This legislation included the recognition of marital rape and women's right to get a credit card, just to name a few. So, I mean, you marry somebody with a certain expectation, but now the government can come in the middle and say, you cannot have that expectation even. The most basic expectation is now can be turned into a crime based on the Jezebel's wishes. Think of how devastating recent that progress was. What that ultimately means is that the few generations that have been born thereafter are among the first who were able to live their whole lives in a time when women actually had all the rights that men did. What a bunch of bullshit, right? We all know that women have much more rights than men do. They've always had privileges. Don't get me wrong, young women today still recognize that there is a lot of progress to be made. This is why we have the Women's March every year, and sexual abusers have been outed more in the past decade than they ever have in history. Yeah, right. A bunch of bullshit. We continue to fight for our reproductive rights that are regularly threatened by the outdated Puritan values that still have too much influence on our nation's values. So this is a new communist criticizing the religious traditions as part of their game plan, because they're regularly threatened by the religious values. These immoral communists who consider murdering babies and being sexually irresponsible a right, a reproductive right, when it has nothing to do with reproduction. Just to stop reproduction in the natural way that it used to be, for which Puritan values help preserve. But now they think because they have the pill and all this BS on the media that a lot of more people are believing. They think that the old ways are now outdated because they're the future. But they don't know they're not the future, they're just the poison. But men never seem tired of telling us, by mansplaining like I am, that besides a few issues here and there, we need to get on with the program and consider ourselves equal already. They always have demands, huh? How about they need to get with the Puritan program already? To them, the pay gap is a myth that's mostly enforced by women's own choices and career paths. Oh yeah. To them, the fact that women earn more college degrees than men is irrefutable proof that we can put the issue of gender equality on the back burner. Well, isn't it? Isn't it enough that the men are doing much worse than the women now? But no, not for this bitch. Solipsistic cunt. Where it's all about her and hers. But despite all the political and legislative progress, I can't help but feel that we've failed to make the same amount of progress socially. She just called the religious traditions of Europe for centuries and millennia, she called it outdated. That's because of the sexual revolution and Marxism taking over the last 50 years. But she wants more progress socially. How funny. After admitting that she's been one of the only generation that has gotten this girl power rights all of her life, but she's still not happy, you see? Our empowerment financially, educationally, and otherwise hasn't done enough to combat the gender expectations that are conditioned in us. Oh my God, people have expectations of me while I'm getting everything for free. How can that be right? This has created generations of women who are capable of being on their own, but who sacrifice. Women shouldn't have to sacrifice in a relationship. That's a man's job. Sacrifice their self-esteem, self-worth, and dignity for a chance to be chosen by a man for marriage. Whether you so here you go, right in the middle. That's where they drop the propaganda that to be a pick-me is to be a woman who has low self-esteem, self-worth, and no dignity, who wants to be chosen by a man for marriage and have to do all these things, sacrifices. So whether you agree with me or not, heterosexual women are socialized. This is again the communist propaganda, that there's no female nature or no male nature, it's just socialization. Whether you agree with me or not, heterosexual women are socialized to make ourselves desirable to men. And in our attempts to do this, we've begun a race to the bottom. Not only are we capable of working, so yeah, they're saying their socialization or femininity is a race to the bottom. Because it's against their communist values. And which they think is the meaning of progress, is to be a Marxist, despite all the fallout that they see. Not only are we capable of working and paying the bills, somehow that ability has come with no change in the expectation that we still put more time in to keep ourselves physically presentable, that we regularly take on a majority of the emotional labor, and that we silently endure the second shift at home. And that one is underlined, like that's the straw that broke the camel's back, you know? So in the old days, men used to pay the bills and women would do all these things. So she's saying now that we're paying the bills, we shouldn't have to do all these things like keep ourselves physically presentable or be attractive to men or take on the majority of the emotional labor. I don't see men asking for more emotionalism in a relationship. I think it's a woman's thing. So obviously, I don't know why they're mad about having to do work that they want to do. And then they silently endure the second shift at home. Oh my God, they have home duties because they don't earn as much money as the man. So They're expected to still do the home duties, I guess. And that's too much for them, I guess. In fact, they should be paying all the bills of the house, and men should be sitting around, since they want equality. No matter how many rights and freedoms we've won, gendered expectations are a socialization issue, not a legislative one. So she's saying the laws are not enough. We need more social change, because socialization is evil, and their socialization is the right socialization. Men are not solely at fault here. Women are also at fault. Oh, wow. So it's like she already is a feminist, and she's just singing in the choir that everyone thinks it's all men's fault, but she's trying to seem more mature, trying to seem like more sensible, even though she has all these nonsense assumptions as a given because of her indoctrination. So women are also at fault for allowing gendered expectations to thrive in the name of finding and sustaining relationships. Now she's criticizing all the traditional women, the Roth personalities, and she's saying, oh, they're the problem too, because they're not Marxist enough. At some point, we need to draw the line. Every article written by a woman who complains about her husband failing to take on more labor in the home seems empowering. But do we ever ask ourselves what she was doing married to that guy in the first place? To create more doubt, break more marriages. That's the motto. Damage more women, break their pair bond instinct, so that they join the communist ranks and promote this Marxist socialization and Marxist values. How do so many women go through dating and engagement and the early stages of marriage failing to see what a glaring problem her low expectations were to begin with? Wow. That's not what I see, low expectations. They want you to blow off an arm and a limb just to be able to talk to their highnesses, which have no heinies anymore. No virginity, I mean. No value. I'm as guilty as anyone of these behaviors. When I first met and started dating my ex-husband, I would take it upon myself to tidy up his room and do the dishes in a house that I didn't even live in. Huh? Wow. So, wow. So, you see the selfishness? She always saw it as a chore to do favors for her ex-husband, because at that time she didn't even have any ownership. She doesn't admit that she was trying to get an ownership by doing these chores, but here she tries to seem like she's just a Mother Teresa figure, who's just a doting, loving partner to everyone. I excuse his messiness because, well, I never met a guy who was very clean to begin with, so I normalize and excuse this behavior. So she knows that guys are not usually as clean as women, but now she's acting like she did a favor just by not nagging him about it. But who the hell wants to be with someone like this, Better to keep them as slaves. I thought that doing these things to him would prove my worth as a good woman and as a good partner. But now I realize how imbalanced this was. So now she's overthinking it and looking at it through her bitch think and her propaganda, indoctrination of feminism. So now she realizes how imbalanced this was, how his level of nonchalance was directly proportional to my level of wanting to prove to him that I could go along with it without complaint. I think anyone can think that. It's a common thought, especially for a narcissist. Having been raised by generations who heavily adhered to traditional gender roles, we've come to normalize these values whether we're conscious of it or not, or how about it's called human nature and dealing with human nature. That's why people have done the same thing for thousands of years. Even a woman in a high social and high power career making a 6-figure salary is not immune to such socialization. So she's saying even our goddess, the corporate carrier woman with the big salary and testicles to match, she's also not immune to this socialization. So instead of letting this version of equality be a dream meant to be achieved by generations of women after us, we need to start demanding it for ourselves. This is what Ramana says. Women, one of their negative traits is they're over eager, not over eager, but over ambitious, yeah. So to get that glory, they'll do anything, even no matter how crazy it is. So she admits that she's been the first generation of women who has lived in these equal laws, but she's saying it's still not enough. We need to start demanding that dream that feminism promises. This may mean being alone more than being partnered. This may mean, see, these bitches call themselves single, but they're just using dicks on call, you know, through the Tinder and all that. That's their dick on call machine. But yeah, they can't partner because they're radical fucking agents of Marxism, so they won't get anything long term. This may mean never getting married or having children because there aren't enough men who live up to these expectations to go around. So here it goes. The harems of the communistic overlords. There's just not enough men, you know. We have to settle for having a woman to a husband who meets these expectations, and really they just want the money. But these are all just bullshit for the average woman to get enslaved mentally. Frankly, we've got to raise the bar if we want our daughters and nieces to have better. And considering men receive praise for doing the bare minimum. I did the bare maximum and I still didn't get praise, but anyway. Not raping someone blackout drunk, waking up to tend to the baby, cooking meals or doing loads of laundry unprompted, staying faithful, etc. It has to be clear that the bar needs to be raised drastically. Here's the greediness of the bitch coming out. And much like grassroots movements, this change starts on an individual level. It starts with each woman who refuses to compromise on a higher standard. If you're a woman reading this, it starts with you. So you see all these fancy words to push all this nonsense. That, you know, we're still suffering and we still don't have enough. And what is good and what is bad and all that. A lot of comments. Please, by all means, so George John. Wow, what a hard name to pronounce. Please, by all means, raise the bar. I'm going fishing. Right? Who's gonna deal with these fucking thoughts? Who bring nothing of value, and think bringing something of value is a offense. So you know, feminists, no good. Good for the harems, you know. That's a prostitute, pretty much. That's why we gotta legalize the prostitution, because these damaged goods, that's all they're gonna be good for, and we don't need them to be messing with regular people's lives who are desperate and causing more disharmony in society by abusing men. We need to put them in their place in the rape camps as prostitutes because that's all they're good for. Kunal checking out with another analysis of the article called "Women Have Been Conditioned to Lower Their Expectations."